And we're live. It's Adam Robinson, founder and CEO of Retention.com. You're watching the $1 Billion Startup. We're building a unicorn in public. And today I'm going to talk about the best sales hack I've ever heard. It is go in as the buyer. What does that mean? Well, the problem you're solving here is when you start pitching, literally 100% of people just tune out. And if it really is pattern interrupt, then maybe you get 1% of people to pay attention to you and advance, right? And the hope is in a normal process, you can beat the heck out of them with marketing and calling back and all that stuff and eventually break them down. Demos booked rates are horribly low. And this is a huge problem. So I talked about Wiley Cirelli earlier this week. He coined this term. Google him, Wiley Cirelli, single platform. Go to YouTube, watch him talk about at this first round capital meeting. It's incredible. So Wiley Cirelli says go in as a buyer. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you two stories. One, his experience at Seamless Web. He was the first salesperson. Seamless Web is a marketplace for restaurants delivering to investment banks and law firms, right? In New York, Manhattan. And then it got really big, Grubhub or whatever else. But it started very small. And he signed up a bunch of corporate accounts, and then he was trying to get restaurants on board. He was cold calling them. He was going in there and he's saying, hey, I have a website, restaurant. You should sign up for it. Restaurants were like, click, don't care. He called the restaurants up and he said, hey, this is Goldman Sachs. I'd like to set up a corporate account. All of a sudden he's going in as the buyer, and he had like a nearly 100% close rate. They said, yes, I would like to set up a corporate account. He said, cool, go to seamlessweb.com and sign up for a corporate account for Goldman Sachs. And then there you go. The rest is history. He then started a company called Single Platform. And this is the story I love the most about going in as the buyer. He literally was calling through lists of leads, or he had a Salesforce doing it, and that he was buying off of info.usa. And he was saying, this is TripAdvisor, or I'm calling on behalf of TripAdvisor. We want to feature your restaurant on our homepage. And we're talking to you and two other Mexican restaurants on the Lower East Side, right? So of course, any restaurant's like, I want to be on the homepage of TripAdvisor. And they had a business development deal with TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor was one of the places they were putting restaurants. They certainly weren't featuring the restaurant on TripAdvisor's homepage, but they were going in, giving the restaurant what they wanted, which was media exposure. They were going in as the buyer, right? They weren't trying to sell the restaurant this product. They booked, and then they would show up the next day, 24 hours later, it would be a demo for Single Platform. I talked to some of the salespeople, like the restaurant just didn't even remember the prospecting pitch. They'd show up for the demo. The product was so compelling, they would just buy it. But they booked 10%, 100 dials a day. They'd book 10 demos off of leads that they bought because they went in as the buyer. They were not trying to sell. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So finally, after 10 years as an entrepreneur, I am able to do this in two ways. Number one, I have a podcast that is called 10 Years in the Making, where I interview amazing founders about how they got their first customers, what their exit plans are, all of that good stuff. Everything about scaling e-com, right? If I interview a founder at a trade show that is a prospect, guess what? I'm going to tell them about Retention.com. Boom, went in as a buyer, little bait and switch. There you go. The second one, we're creating a massive media property called Discover Shopify. We're going to have tens of millions of eyeballs of e-commerce buyers that we can basically expose a brand to. This is going to happen sometime in the first or second quarter. We can go into brands and say, hey, we will do an advertorial for you for Discover Shopify, get them to close the deal and basically say, hey, by the way, have you ever heard of Retention.com? Going in as the buyer, getting that new eyeballs. This is an incredible sales hack. It gets people's guard down. It solves this problem of people's eyes glazing over when you're trying to pitch them. If I had one piece of sales advice, go in as the buyer.